Currently, there is absolutely no video which shows Tyler Robinson firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk.
This is Candace Owens declaring that Tyler Robinson didn't kill Charlie Kirk, and now the FBI has dropped terrifying proof backing her claim. The real killer has been unmasked, and the truth is out. Who actually pulled the trigger? And what secret was so dangerous it had to be buried under a lie? I've got the full story. Let's get into it. The assassination that shocked a nation. On September 10th, 2025, at exactly 12:23 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, a single gunshot rang out across the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The target was Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old founder of Turning Point USA, a man whose conservative activism had made him both a beloved figure among Trump supporters and a lightning rod for liberal opposition. What happened next would ignite one of the most controversial conspiracy theories in modern American politics.
Where should we begin? I'll tell you this, something is not right. Something is not right. And I am going to need you, whoever it is that's listening to this podcast right now, to wake up.
That voice belongs to Candace Owens, former TPUSA communications director and one of Charlie Kirk's closest allies. Within days of the assassination, she would become the leading voice challenging the official narrative, armed with what she claims is explosive evidence that Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old charged with Kirk's murder, is nothing more than an innocent patsy in a far more sinister plot.
My contention here is that some in the pro-Israel camp are so knee-jerk about calling you anti-Semitic or getting deeply offended if you say anything that doesn't align with their narrative, that it undermines their own cause.
The scene that day at Utah Valley University was supposed to be routine. Kirk was conducting one of his signature Prove Me Wrong campus tours, engaging with students in what had become a trademark format of his conservative activism. The outdoor event drew approximately 3,000 people, including families with children who had come to hear the polarizing figure speak about American politics and conservative values. What unfolded instead was captured on multiple camera angles and would become some of the most shocking footage ever broadcast on social media. Videos show Kirk mid-sentence, discussing mass shootings ironically, when he suddenly collapsed after the sound of a single gunshot. The precision of the shot, striking him in the neck from an alleged distance of 142 yards, would later become a central point of controversy.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megan, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel both on campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times because I believe it, right?
Within minutes, chaos erupted across the campus. Students screamed and ran for cover, while security personnel rushed to the stage where Kirk lay bleeding. He was transported to Timpanogos Regional Hospital, where he was pronounced dead approximately 30 minutes later, the single bullet having severed his carotid artery. But here's where the story takes its first mysterious turn. According to the official timeline, Tyler Robinson allegedly fled the scene immediately after the shooting, yet he wouldn't surrender to authorities for another 33 hours. What was he doing during that time? Where was he hiding? And most importantly, was he really the one who pulled the trigger?
I can tell you right now, from the energy that is coming out of him, the energy that is coming out of Megan, is where I was 2 years ago. Okay? I've been there.
Candace Owens wasn't buying the official story from day one. As someone who had worked closely with Kirk and understood the pressures he faced, she immediately sensed something was off about the entire investigation. Her suspicions would only deepen as more details emerged about the case. The first red flag, according to Owens, was how quickly federal authorities took control of the investigation. She notes that the feds immediately interjected and took over the case from local police. The desire was never there to catch the killer. This federal takeover, she argues, was unusual for what should have been a straightforward local homicide case. But the real bombshell came when authorities released what they claimed were text messages between Robinson and his roommate, Lance Twiggs. These messages, which allegedly contained detailed confessions and plans, immediately struck Owens as suspicious. She described them as federally written and lacking proper timestamps, calling into question their authenticity. The messages themselves read like something out of a movie script. In them, Robinson allegedly tells his roommate in elaborate detail about hiding the rifle, changing clothes, and watching for police cars. But what struck Owens as particularly odd was the language used. In one message, Robinson allegedly says he changed outfits, a phrase Owens points out that men typically don't use.
Around some of these exchanges, there's ellipses above, if you look really closely.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're cherry picking certain exchanges. So that my dad is super MAGA just comes out of nowhere because they picked it from a totally different part of the conversation.
Even more suspicious to Owens was the precision of the shooting itself. Expert analysis she consulted indicated that the neck shot from such a distance would require the skills of a trained marksman, not a 22-year-old amateur. The fact that there was reportedly no exit wound despite the high-powered rifle allegedly used only added to her suspicions about the official ballistics narrative. But perhaps most damning of all was what Owens discovered about Robinson's whereabouts after the shooting. A photo allegedly showing Robinson at a Dairy Queen approximately 15 minutes from campus at 6:38 p.m., over 6 hours after the shooting, raised serious questions about the timeline. In the photo, Robinson appears calm and composed, hardly the demeanor one would expect from someone who had just committed their first murder and was being hunted by law enforcement. As Owens dug deeper into the case, she began to uncover what she believed were the real motives behind Kirk's assassination. This wasn't a random act of political violence by a disturbed young man, she argued. This was a carefully orchestrated hit designed to silence Kirk just as he was beginning to question some of the most powerful forces in American politics. To understand why someone might want Charlie Kirk dead, Owens argues, you have to understand the immense pressure he had been under in the months leading up to his assassination. Kirk had built Turning Point USA into one of the most influential conservative organizations in America, with major donors contributing millions of dollars to support his campus activism and political messaging. But according to Owens, that relationship with his donors had become increasingly strained as Kirk began to evolve on certain issues, particularly regarding Israel and American foreign policy. She claims that major donors like Bill Ackman had organized what amounted to an intervention at a Hamptons event, pressuring Kirk to maintain unwavering support for Israeli policies. The pressure, according to Owens, was relentless. She quotes Tucker Carlson as saying, "They tormented Charlie Kirk until the day he died," referring to the constant financial threats and intimidation Kirk allegedly faced from major donors who wanted to control his messaging. But the donors weren't the only source of pressure. Owens also reveals that Kirk had been planning a financial audit of Turning Point USA in the week before his death, potentially exposing irregularities that could have embarrassed or implicated powerful figures within the organization. The federal cover-up and fabricated evidence. As Candace Owens continued her investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination, what she discovered would shake her faith in the American justice system to its core. According to her sources, the FBI wasn't just investigating the case, they were actively working to shut it down, pressuring Utah authorities to declare Tyler Robinson a lone gunman and close the case permanently. Owens claims she has it on very well-placed authority that the FBI is putting an absurd amount of pressure on Utah authorities to officially rule Kirk's assassination as the work of a lone gunman. The federal argument, she says, is that keeping the case open might somehow compromise their prosecution of Robinson, a form of what she calls moral blackmail.
Yeah, these messages are clearly doctored, is what I would say. They're doctored. Now, they could decide why they're doing that. Tyler's being forthcoming. We're protecting him in some capacity. I find that to be unacceptable.
But here's the problem with that argument. According to Owens' sources, there is absolutely no video evidence showing Tyler Robinson actually firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk. Even more damaging to the prosecution's case is the fact that the individual who filmed the only known footage of the shooter on the rooftop told Owens directly that he doesn't believe Robinson is the person he saw. This eyewitness account is particularly significant because the person who recorded the footage has extensive experience with firearms and teaches others how to shoot. According to Owens, this expert witness told her that the person he observed was wearing entirely different clothing than what Robinson allegedly wore, and that the weapon didn't match what was supposedly used in the shooting.
There's no other way to say it. It's also dropping text messages that prove nothing, and a guy named Eric Bowling is just lying through his teeth on PBD, the PBD podcast, to establish this narrative.
The clothing discrepancy is just one of many inconsistencies that Owens has identified in the official narrative. Robinson was supposedly wearing a black t-shirt and jeans during the shooting, but the eyewitness described someone in tactical gear. Even more puzzling is how Robinson allegedly got the rifle onto the rooftop in the first place. According to Owens' federal sources, authorities don't actually have any footage showing how the rifle got onto the roof. The official story claims Robinson simply dropped onto the the roof at 12:15 p.m., but there's no video evidence of this crucial moment. How does someone carry a high-powered rifle onto a university campus and up to a rooftop without being detected by any of the numerous security cameras? The problems with the physical evidence don't stop there. Owens reports that the bullet recovered from the scene was too fragmented to definitively match Robinson's rifle. This is particularly significant because ballistics matching is typically one of the strongest forms of evidence in shooting cases.
First and foremost, 6:38 p.m., you just shot someone. You have gone through great pains to hide your face, to change your outfit. But wait, you didn't fully change your outfit, did you? I'm looking at this photo. And you're wearing jeans and you're wearing the maroon shirt.
Perhaps most importantly, Robinson himself has never actually confessed to the crime. While authorities claim his father convinced him to turn himself in, Robinson has maintained his innocence throughout the process. This raises a fundamental question. How can you arrest someone for murder without either a confession or conclusive physical evidence? The answer, according to Owens, lies in the fabricated text messages that authorities claim prove Robinson's guilt. These messages, supposedly exchanged between Robinson and his roommate Lance Twiggs, contain detailed admissions of guilt and descriptions of the crime. But Owens argues that everything about these messages screams federal fabrication. First, there are the language inconsistencies. As mentioned earlier, Robinson allegedly refers to changing outfits, terminology that men rarely use. He also refers to police vehicles as squad cars, which Owens notes is typically terminology used by law enforcement officers themselves, not civilians. But perhaps most telling is the overall tone and structure of the messages. Multiple commentators across the political spectrum, including Matt Walsh and Steve Bannon, have noted that the texts read as overly scripted and detailed for a 22-year-old. The messages contain the kind of detailed chronology and explicit admissions that would be perfect for a prosecution case, almost too perfect.
Also, wow, you must have quite the stomach. You don't have a record, next thing you know, you shoot someone and you're like, I'm just gonna go have a meal.
Owens also points out that the released text messages lack proper timestamps and context, with ellipses indicating that portions have been cherry-picked from longer conversations. Why wouldn't authorities release the complete time-stamped conversation if it was genuine evidence? The federal cover-up, according to Owens, extends far beyond just fabricated text messages. She claims that authorities have been pressuring locals not to share any footage they may have captured, creating a situation where the federal government controls virtually all visual evidence from the scene. This pattern of evidence control reminds Owens of other controversial cases in American history. She draws parallels to 9/11, noting how federal authorities quickly seized all footage from around the Pentagon, controlling the narrative by limiting what the public could see. But the smoking gun in Owens's investigation may be the Dairy Queen photograph. This image, allegedly showing Robinson at a Dairy Queen location approximately 15 minutes from campus at 6:38 p.m. on the day of the shooting, poses serious problems for the official timeline. According to the official story, Robinson spent hours after the shooting hiding near the campus, attempting to retrieve his rifle while evading law enforcement. The text messages claim he was stuck in Orem and babysitting the rifle, waiting for the right moment to recover the weapon. But the Dairy Queen photo tells a different story entirely. In the image, Robinson appears calm and relaxed, showing no signs of the stress one would expect from someone who had just committed murder and was being hunted by police. His clothing also presents another inconsistency. He's wearing what appears to be a combination of the outfits authorities claim he wore at different times during the day. This photograph leads to one of Owens' most explosive theories about what really happened that day. Rather than Robinson being the actual shooter, she suggests he may have been recruited as an unwitting accomplice, someone who was told to simply deliver a weapon to a specific location, not knowing the true purpose. Local sources have told Owens that they believe Robinson was instructed to walk onto campus and drop off his gun at a predetermined location near a chicken coop. According to this theory, the real shooter was an entirely different person who used Robinson's weapon to carry out the assassination before disappearing into what locals describe as a mysteriously vacant home owned by the university itself. This theory would explain several of the puzzling aspects of the case. It would account for Robinson's DNA being on the rifle trigger, while also explaining why there's no footage of him actually firing the weapon. It would justify his calm demeanor at Dairy Queen. If he didn't know he had been used in a murder plot, he would have no reason to appear stressed or worried. The theory is supported by locals who find it suspicious that the gun was found near a vacant property owned by Utah Valley University, providing the perfect safe house for a professional assassin to escape to after completing their mission. But if Robinson was just an unwitting accomplice, who was the real shooter? And more importantly, who had the power and motivation to orchestrate such an elaborate plot? According to Owens, the answers lie in the dangerous enemies that Charlie Kirk had been making in the months before his death. Enemies who had access to the kind of resources and connections necessary to pull off a professional assassination. The Zionist Conspiracy and Kirk's Final Days.
Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder.
The voice you just heard belongs to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, making his second public denial that Israel had anything to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination. But according to Candace Owens, the very fact that Netanyahu felt compelled to address these allegations twice is itself suspicious. After all, when was the last time you saw a foreign leader repeatedly deny involvement in an American murder case that no one had officially accused them of orchestrating? This brings us to the most controversial aspect of Owens' investigation, her claims about the powerful Zionist donors who she believes had both the motive and means to eliminate Charlie Kirk. While Owens is careful to note that she's not directly accusing Israel of ordering the hit, she paints a compelling picture of the intense pressure Kirk faced from pro-Israel donors in the weeks before his death.
It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization.
The story begins in the Hamptons, where Bill Ackman and other major donors organized what Owens describes as an intervention to pressure Kirk about his evolving views on Israel. According to sources who attended the multi-day retreat, Kirk was facing intense criticism for his shifting stance on Israeli policies and his willingness to platform critics of American support for Israel. Owens reports that attendees characterized the event as an intervention, with Kirk feeling blackmailed by offers of massive funding, contingent on his maintaining unwavering support for Israeli policies. The pressure wasn't subtle, it was a direct ultimatum: align with our views on Israel or lose the financial support that keeps Turning Point USA operational.
Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago.
But what Netanyahu doesn't mention in his denial is the other side of that correspondence. Owens challenges him to publish the full letter Kirk wrote, not just selected excerpts, and to acknowledge that Kirk had declined Netanyahu's invitation to visit Israel just weeks before his death. Why would Kirk turn down a trip to Israel if he was as supportive as Netanyahu claims? The answer, according to Owens, lies in Kirk's growing frustration with what he saw as Israeli overreach and the pressure he faced from American donors to remain silent about it. She points to Kirk's appearance on Megyn Kelly's show the day after the Hamptons event, where he expressed frustration about being called anti-Semitic for asking legitimate questions about Israeli policies.
Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country.
In that revealing interview, Kirk spoke about how some pro-Israel advocates were so knee-jerk about calling you anti-Semitic if you questioned any aspect of Israeli policy. He expressed particular frustration about not being able to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu without being labeled anti-Semitic, and he worried about Israel losing the propaganda war in America due to their heavy-handed tactics against critics. But the financial pressure wasn't limited to donor interventions and ultimatums. Owens reveals that in the 48 hours before Kirk's assassination, major donor Robert Shillman had demanded that his name be removed from a building at Turning Point USA, apparently over Kirk's evolving positions. Then, mysteriously, after Kirk's death, Shillman reportedly said, "Never mind, put it back on the building."
A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding.
This pattern of behavior, threatening Kirk financially and then doing an about-face after his death, fits what Owens sees as a broader conspiracy to control the narrative around Kirk's assassination. She notes that multiple donors who had been threatening to pull funding suddenly became supportive again once Kirk was no longer alive to voice dissenting opinions. But the donors weren't the only source of pressure Kirk faced. Owens reveals that Kirk had been planning a comprehensive financial audit of Turning Point USA in the week before his death, potentially exposing irregularities in how donor money was being spent. This audit could have been deeply embarrassing to major contributors and possibly revealed illegal activities. The timing of this planned audit, just days before Kirk's assassination, raises troubling questions about whether financial corruption within Turning Point USA itself might have provided additional motives for eliminating its founder. If Kirk had discovered that donor money was being misused, or that the organization was being used for purposes beyond its stated mission, he would have had the power to expose that corruption. Perhaps most disturbing of all is what Owens describes as a spiritual dimension to the attack on Kirk. She reveals that just 2 weeks before his assassination, the far-left website Jezebel had hired witches through Etsy to cast curses on Kirk. While this might sound like harmless internet trolling, Owens argues that it represents a deeper spiritual warfare being waged against conservative leaders. According to Owens, Kirk and his wife Erica were genuinely rattled by these curses and consulted with a Catholic priest the night before Kirk's assassination. The couple understood that spiritual attacks could have real-world consequences, and they took the threat seriously enough to seek spiritual protection. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for Owens's theory comes from the behavior of Kirk's alleged enemies after his death. Rather than maintaining a respectful silence, several figures immediately began working to control the narrative around Kirk's assassination and his legacy. Eric Bowling, appearing on the PBD podcast, made demonstrably false claims about Owens's relationship with Kirk, suggesting they hadn't spoken in years. This was easily debunked. Owens had been on tour with Turning Point USA just the previous year and had maintained regular contact with Kirk throughout their friendship.
I don't know, guys. That Israeli propaganda just ain't hitting the same. It's just not hitting the same.
The coordinated nature of these attacks on Owens's credibility suggests an organized effort to discredit her investigation before it could gain traction. Multiple publications began running similar talking points about her supposed estrangement from Kirk, despite the easily verifiable fact that they had remained close friends and collaborators. But Owens's investigation has had consequences that extend far beyond conservative media circles. FBI Director Kash Patel announced that the Bureau would investigate public theories about the assassination, including questions about accomplices and evidence tampering. Owens took credit for forcing this investigation, posting, "We did this," on social media. The federal response to public pressure represents a rare victory for independent investigators challenging official narratives. It suggests that Owens's theories have gained enough traction to force even federal law enforcement to take them seriously, despite their obvious preference for closing the case quickly. However, Owens's investigation has also created significant divisions within the conservative movement. Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy, publicly rebuked her, saying, "I only wish at this tragic time of mourning she would be the friend to Charlie that he was to her." This criticism from someone so close to Kirk highlights the tension between seeking truth and respecting the grieving process. The divisions have extended beyond personal relationships to broader questions about how conservatives should respond to political violence. Some argue that Owens' investigation is necessary to prevent future assassinations and expose corruption, while others worry that conspiracy theories could further destabilize an already polarized political environment. Meanwhile, Kirk's widow Erica has taken a notably different approach. Rather than seeking revenge or demanding investigations, she delivered a Christ-focused eulogy emphasizing forgiveness and love. Her grace in the face of tragedy stands in stark contrast to the bitter conspiracy theories swirling around her husband's death.
Gaza's not helpful. You talking about a free country, Gaza just kind of being bombarded because you want to make a beachside place vacation for your friends.
The impact of Owens' investigation extends far beyond the specific question of who killed Charlie Kirk. Her theories have exposed deep fractures within the conservative movement over Israel, foreign policy, and the influence of major donors on political messaging. These divisions were already present, but have been dramatically amplified by the circumstances of Kirk's death. The investigation has also revealed the extent to which major donors attempt to control conservative messaging, raising questions about whether organizations like Turning Point USA are truly independent or merely vehicles for wealthy interests. If Owens is correct about the pressure Kirk faced, it suggests that conservative leaders operate under constraints that their audiences may not fully understand. But perhaps most significantly, Owens' investigation has highlighted the broader issue of trust in American institutions. Her claims about federal cover-ups and fabricated evidence, whether true or false, resonate with millions of Americans who have lost faith in government agencies and mainstream media. This erosion of trust makes it increasingly difficult to establish shared facts about controversial events. The case has also demonstrated the power of alternative media to challenge official narratives. Owens' podcast reached millions of listeners with her theories, forcing even federal law enforcement to respond to public pressure. This represents a significant shift in how information flows in American society, with independent creators sometimes wielding more influence than traditional news outlets. As we conclude this investigation into Candace Owens' theories about Charlie Kirk's assassination, several questions remain unanswered. The full autopsy autopsy results have yet to be released. Tyler Robinson's trial is still pending. The FBI investigation prompted by public pressure is ongoing. What we can say with certainty is that Owens has succeeded in raising legitimate questions about the official narrative. Whether her specific theories about Zionist conspiracies and federal cover-ups prove correct, she has highlighted troubling inconsistencies that deserve answers. The fabricated text messages, the missing video evidence, the suspicious timeline, these are all legitimate concerns that any thorough investigation should address. At the same time, it's important to recognize the dangers of conspiracy theories in an already polarized political environment. Multiple fact-checkers have found no evidence to support the most explosive claims about Israeli involvement or federal cover-ups. The risk of these theories inspiring violence or further dividing American society cannot be ignored.
It was actually related to Gaza. So, and what you were going to do with Gaza thereafter. So why are you saying that about Americans? If we were taking money from Qatar, it wouldn't be a problem according to your administration and your cronies.
Perhaps the most troubling aspect of this entire affair is how it reflects the broader breakdown of shared truth in American society. We live in an era where major events immediately spawn competing narratives, with different communities believing entirely different sets of facts. This makes democratic governance increasingly difficult, as citizens cannot agree on basic reality. The Charlie Kirk assassination has become a Rorschach test for American politics. Conservatives see evidence of deep state conspiracies and Zionist control. Liberals see dangerous conspiracy theories that threaten democracy. Law enforcement sees a straightforward murder case complicated by internet speculation. Each group interprets the same evidence through entirely different lenses.
So what's this about? I was so hopeful that you would be able to get through that speech without mentioning the Holocaust, but that was kind of the opening liner. Joseph Goebbels said, bro, Joseph Goebbels has nothing on the Zionists in America and the propaganda that they have pushed.
What seems clear is that Charlie Kirk's death has revealed deep tensions within American conservatism that extend far beyond questions about foreign policy or donor influence. The movement faces fundamental questions about its relationship with wealthy benefactors, its commitment to free speech, and its willingness to question powerful interests. Whether Candace Owens is a truth-telling investigative journalist or a conspiracy theorist exploiting tragedy may depend largely on your existing political beliefs, but her investigation has undeniably succeeded in forcing uncomfortable questions about power, money, and influence in American politics. As this case continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the reverberations from Charlie Kirk's assassination will be felt throughout American politics for years to come. The questions raised by his death about donor influence, federal power, and the nature of truth itself are too important to be dismissed simply because they make us uncomfortable. The ultimate test of Owens's theories will come through the legal process and ongoing investigations. Until then, we're left to grapple with the troubling possibility that nothing in American politics is quite what it seems, and that the truth about even the most shocking events may be far more complex and disturbing than we ever imagined. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.